What's going on, y'all? Welcome to episode 21 of the Fight Night Forecast, where we highlight, recap, and cover all things boxing. Had another big weekend for you guys. It was Mexican Independence Day weekend. And normally we would see Canelo fight this weekend. But he obviously is fighting in a couple weeks. They couldn't get the date worked out, so he's fighting on September 30th. But we still had a
sensational
lineup of Mexican fighters who all showed out and really put it all on the line. We had some really good bouts this weekend, and let's get into it right now. Let's start over in Corpus Christi, Texas, on ESPN Top Rank. We had the IBF Featherweight Championship on the line with Luis Alberto Lopez and Joet Gonzalez. Boy, they had a really good bout. It was a lot of back and forth. At one point, Lopez had it to where I was like, man, he's about to get Gonzalez out of here. And then next thing you know, Gonzalez comes back and I'm like, yo, I think Lopez is about to be done. And then it's just back and forth. It was great. Ended up going to decision and Lopez won. But Mark Kriegel, one of the announcers on Top Rank, he does like an unofficial scorecard, and he actually had Gonzalez winning. And some of the guys on the broadcast team agreed with him on that too. So I don't really want to say it's a controversy because all three of the officials all went towards Lopez, but just kind of interesting. It was that just means it was a really close fight. If you got the guy that's running the unofficial card scoring it the other way, and I think it came down to like the last round. I mean, I think Kriegel had it tied going into the last round. So I mean, that's how close it literally could have been. But yeah, so other key fights on that card though. Xander Zayas, he won. He's a prospect coming up at junior welter, and then not junior welter, super welter, 154. And then we had Emiliano Vargas, the youngest brother. He won. Jermaine Ortiz just climbed the ranks at 135. He got a good dub, back off that back injury. And funny enough, we were supposed to have Robson Conceição fight, but he got pulled last minute for a title fight with Emmanuel Navarrete. And that's going to be later this month on a card that I'm going to announce for you guys later in the show. So it's going to be a co-main on a pretty big card in November. So, but yeah, that was that was just a good card altogether. I watched it. Top Rank did a really good job putting that one together. So, and then we had another banger in Tijuana. Angel Fierro fought Brian Zamaripa. I hadn't heard much about him. He's a pretty slick southpaw though, and he impressed me on Friday night. And it was a very aggressive, high volume, pressure. It was really good. And Zamaripa was real slick, and he kept it interesting in that aspect while Fierro was kind of trying to bring the heat the entire time. That also came down to a very close decision, and Fierro ended up taking it. But I got the judges' cards on this one. So they scored at 96-94 Fierro, 96-95 Fierro, and then 96-94 Zamaripa. That's how close that fight was. That was a really close fight also. So yeah, we had two really good cards on Friday night to kick off Mexican Independence Day weekend. But also on the Fierro Zamaripa card, Sky Nicholson won. She's a southpaw prospect. She won the featherweight interim title, I believe. So I could only imagine she's going to be set up to fight the champion here pretty soon, the WBC champion. And she moves to 8-0. Christian Olivo, he's a prospect. He had a big win over Crespo, who was also another prospect. So even these guys that are in the prospect status, right? These guys are out here killing it, man, putting on these great undercards and all that stuff. So boxing's heading in the right direction for sure. So then the next day, September 16th, we had William Zepeda and Mercito Hesta. That was a southpaw versus southpaw bout, which is always fun to see. When you get them left-handers fighting each other, they don't know what to do. I'm a left-hander myself, so I understand. Zepeda, he is just like he has a crazy amount of punches thrown per round. I think going into this fight, he's averaging almost 100 punches thrown per round. I think something around like between 30 or 50 landed, which is insane. That's per round. There's some guys that don't even throw 100 punches in a fight. You know what I mean? Like in a 12-round bout, there's not even 100 punches thrown. So, he did a really good job in this fight with setting up body shots. He was throwing barrages of body shots, and he had Hesta gassed out pretty early, just from those body shots. You sit there and take those body shots over and over again. I don't care who you are. And Hesta was really quick on his feet. He was slick and he was moving. But the problem is, once you start taking them body shots and you're just sitting there eating them, it slows you down immensely, takes your legs away from you. And that's literally what happened. So he had hit him with a barrage of body shots. Hesta had a good chin and was taking everything well, and but yeah, it just ended up being a 6-round stoppage, and really it all attested to just it slowed his feet down. And once he, you could tell he was hurt to the body, he started becoming a lot more stationary, and then Zepeda just did what he does, averaging 100 punches around. I mean, if you got a guy throwing around 100 punches around at you, you're going to bound to get caught with something, and if you get stuck in the mud from the body shots adding up, some of those are going to land, and you're most likely either, going to have to up your pressure to meet that, or you're probably going to get outpointed or stopped. So absolutely. It was a really good bout though this weekend. I mean, I'm telling you, I couldn't express enough how just surprised I was, because none of these guys necessarily have a huge pay-per-view name, right? None of these guys completely stand out to you where it's like, oh man, this guy is going to, put butts in seats. But it just goes to show you that even on the on the weekends where they don't have the big names, you can still enjoy really good boxing, and that's why, I encourage you guys to tune in to some of these, smaller cards, because, you're missing out, and sometimes you get a lot better boxing on some of these smaller cards, you know what I mean? The ones that don't draw all the casuals in. So yeah, I thought this weekend was great. Also on the Zepeda card though, we had Eric Priest. He's a prospect that this show's been following for a little bit. He had a majority decision. He won 8 rounds. And then another prospect that I've been following for a little bit, just moved to 7-0, Darius Fulgham. He had a doctor's stoppage, actually. The guy he fought had a cut over his eye, kept getting blood in his eye, and couldn't see some of the punches. So the doctor ended up stepping in and calling that. So he moved, to 7-0. But yeah, so super hyped, had a great weekend. Now let's look forward to what we got coming up this weekend. September 23rd on ESPN, we have Zhilei Zhang and Joe Joyce. They're fighting for the WBO heavyweight interim title, which I believe currently is held by Usyk. So I'm not sure what the plan would be with that, because I know they're wanting to set up Usyk Fury fight possibly for next year, even though now Fury's kind of going off the deep end a little bit, and he's talking about how his goals are changing every day. Now he wants to become a movie star is what he's saying, and he wants to be the highest paid athlete on the Forbes list this year. So he's, he's heading in the right direction, fighting Ngannou with that one. But, he keeps changing his mind. Like one minute he's like, yeah, I want to be undisputed. And the next minute he's like, nah, I want to be a movie star now. So I don't know what's going on with that. I'll keep y'all updated. If we, obviously if anything is announced or is planned to be announced, the Fight Night forecast will find it and we will cover it. So rest assured, you're in good hands. I'll be doing all the research. I'm out here, I'm out here in these boxing streets trying to get the scoop on everything for y'all. So, but yeah, so we'll see. I think, I could very well see Usyk fighting one of these two guys. So they're both a little older. They're like in their late 30s. But of course, Usyk's in his mid 30s too. So I guess it's not too old. But yeah, so they're fighting for that interim. On that card, we have a co-main, Anthony Yarde. He's fighting Ricky Summers. That's a light heavyweight. And another prospect that the show is high on, Tommy Fletcher. He's a heavyweight prospect. He's fighting also on that card. And then a DAZN card, we have Richardson Hitchens. He's fighting Jose Cepeda, and that is 10 rounds at junior welter 140. Now, Richardson Hitchens, he was supposed to fight Montana Love, I believe back earlier this year. I want to say like February or March or something like that, early, or maybe even May, I'm not sure. Earlier this year, they're supposed to fight, but Montana Love had an injury and had to pull out. So Hitchens is back. Ooh, Richardson Hitchens, that's kind of a tough name. Hitchens is back, and he's going to be fighting this weekend. And also on that card, one of my favorite women boxers, Jessica McCaskill, she's fighting Sandy Ryan for the WBA, WBC, which is held by McCaskill right now. And then also the WBO, which is vacant, and that's all at welterweight. So, yeah, going to be a pretty decent weekend coming up for boxing. You know, your boy, I'll be tuning in. So we'll move forward here also on some key dates coming up. Obviously not this weekend, but the next weekend we have Canelo and Jermell Charlo. That's on the 30th. Trust me, we'll go into plenty of detail on that in the next 2 episodes, so you guys will get the full scoop. So following that up, October 7th, we have Lee Wood and Josh Warrington, who Josh Warrington fought Luis Alberto Lopez a few months back, or maybe a year ago back, something like that, and he lost the IBF featherweight title to him. That's why, Lopez has it now. So, but yeah, he's actually fighting for the WBA featherweight title now. That's Lee Wood's title. So that'd be a good bout. Also on that card, Terry Harper. She's a pretty big name in the women's boxing scene. She'll be on that card. Also on October 7th, we have Zurdo Ramirez. He's fighting Joe Smith Jr. That's going to be a really good bout of light heavyweight. Big fan of Joe Smith Jr. Zurdo's a dog, man. I mean, he just came off that loss, I believe, to Bivol, but and then Joe Smith lost to Beterbiev, but still, no. I mean, losing to either of those guys, you can't hang your hat on that. Those guys are 2 of the top guys in that division. Arguably, could be put somewhere near the pound for pound list. Both those guys, with how good they are. I think Bivol might be actually on there, but I'm not sure about Beterbiev. But yeah, so these guys are trying to work their way back up the ranks, get back to that title shot, and maybe we'll see a Beterbiev Bivol undisputed soon. Who knows? We'll see. But I know Beterbiev has that bout with Callum Smith coming up in January, but I'm not sure Bivol has anything on the schedule right now. So, but yeah, it'd be good to see the light heavyweight division staying active, and maybe one of those guys gets a title shot again. We'll see. And then October 28th, Fury and Ngannou. We got that coming up. We'll have more on that. And then let's move into an announcement that happened literally hours after I posted my podcast last week. Literally hours. I mean, like, I posted the podcast and like less than 2 hours later, I'm looking at ESPN Ringside's Instagram, and they posted that Shakur Stevenson is fighting Edwin De Los Santos on November 16th. That is going to be the card that Navarrete and Conceição is the co-main on. So they're doing like a co-main title feature. Now, Shakur and De Los Santos will be for the WBC vacant 135 title that has been vacated since Devin Haney moved up. So I believe Haney still has possession of the other 3 titles. The WBC just ruled that since he moved up, Shakur is going to be allowed to fight for that WBC title. So I don't know if it's going to be an interim. It says vacant, but it might end up being like an interim type thing, and then they'll possibly make Haney come back and fight him. But we saw the negotiations on that last time, so I'd be surprised if that happens right now. But yeah, so moving off from Shakur, he just hopped on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast and kind of spilled the whole beans about what was going on with Frank Martin and him. So it seems like for sure it was the money that was the issue. And everyone's kind of dogging on Shakur because they're like, hey, Shakur, like, you wouldn't take that 25% with Haney. Why would you expect Frank Martin to take 25% from you? And, Shakur had a rebuttal on the show, on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast, that, he said the difference is, he goes, I made way more on my last 3 fights than what 25% of what Devin Haney was going to give you. So they had the numbers skewed, right? Because they were saying like, Team Haney was saying like, well, it was going to be like 8 or 9 million or something like that is what he was going to make, right? On that pay-per-view, which that would have been 25%, right, of the total. So if you kind of think about that, if 25% is close to 10 million, that means they were going to give, there's no way they'd give Haney 30 million. These numbers just don't even add up, right? I mean, I think the most Haney's made on a fight was like close to 10 million, somewhere in that realm, maybe a little less. But yeah, that's wild. So we can kind of tell that may have been a little fabricated, because if you're offering Shakur 8 million at 25%, Haney's never been paid that much. That's like a Canelo level fight, and they don't sell. Haney doesn't sell near the amount of pay-per-views that a Canelo or a Gervonta Davis or somebody would sell, right? So those guys make 30 million on a pay-per-view, not Devin Haney. So I think the numbers are skewed, and he brought that up in that podcast, and it kind of makes sense now. He goes, these numbers are skewed; they don't even make sense. But he will say on the flip side, he's like, hey, listen, we offered Frank Martin 25%, but that was 4 times the amount that Frank Martin has ever made in his career, right? So Frank Martin, the most he's made, according to Shakur on the podcast, he said the most he's made in a fight is $250,000, right? So I believe the 25% of what they were going to offer him was a little over $1 million after everything was said and done, which is correct. That's 4 times the amount that he's ever fully made on a fight, right? So, of course, Shakur went into it and started saying, he's, this and that, everything, pretty much called him everything but a man. But, he's like, for him, ducking this fight is ridiculous. Personally, I agree with Shakur a little bit. It's like, this was going to be your biggest payday, right? And if you're Frank Martin, this is your chance to really show the world who you are, right? So this is just going to, I think even if Frank Martin wins or loses, unless he just loses badly, this is going to open up an avenue to so many bigger paydays for Frank Martin down the road in the sport of boxing. But, I just want to say that I hate calling anybody a duck. I hate calling anybody, or bringing a negative connotation to anybody in the sport of boxing. But Frank Martin, I feel like he better have something else lined up. Otherwise, people are going to really lay into him on missing out on this opportunity, so. And it really does seem like at this point, Shakur is one of the most ducked guys in the sport, So, I mean, it's tough to think that Frank Martin decided to pass up, 4 times the amount that he's ever made in a pay-per-view before. So it kind of makes you wonder what the reasoning was behind that. But, we may never fully know. We're just going to hear sides of the story. But at the same time, Frank's not really coming out and making his side of the story known. You know what I mean? He's just kind of posting these vague stuff on social media and stuff. He's kind of staying out of it. And that's just the kind of guy that Frank Martin is. He's not super out and in the public and all that. But, yeah, I think we just got to see if Frank Martin really does have something else lined up. Like people kind of mentioned possibly Tank being lined up for Frank Martin. But, I'd be surprised. Shakur kind of shut that down. He goes, dude, he doesn't have no Tank in his back pocket. He's not using Tank, So we'll see. But yeah, right now we're moving forward with Shakur and Edwin De Los Santos. That's going to be a pretty good fight. De Los Santos is no slouch. And I think that, I think it's going to be a good bout. I think we're going to be surprised by how well De Los Santos shows out. I'm a huge Shakur fan. You guys know that. So I really do believe Shakur will most likely win that, and I hope he does because that gets him a little bit more gold around his waist at the 135 division. Maybe that sets up a Haney bout. Maybe that sets up a future Tank bout. Who knows? You know, I'm really impressed with Shakur and his growth in the sport and his growth as a person, because he came out and said, you know, I can't call out a Tank. He goes, Tank's one of the biggest stars in boxing, you know, so he said, Tank's gonna have to call me out. So he goes, if Tank decides to call me out, he goes, I'll be there. And I'm ready to show the world who I am as a boxer. So super cool, man. He's, you know, he's got that dog in him, and you can tell, but he's also got that sense of like, he's growing and he's got humbleness to him. And you can't forget this. He's a 24, 25-year-old kid. You know what I mean? So it's good to see that those kind of words come out of, you know, a young athlete's mouth, as opposed to just kind of some of the garbage you see some guys spew, you know? So, all right, sounds good. And I have one more bit of news for you guys, and we're going to wrap this episode up, kind of a quick episode. But I have a hot take for you guys, and I'm going to end it on this. I have a real hot take. I do not think that Terrence Bud Crawford wants to fight Errol Spence again. That's my hot take. I don't think he does. And before all the Bud fanboys come at me and they say, you know, hey man, you're just repping Errol, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Hear me out on this. Hear me out on this. Hear me out on my hot take. I'll never give y'all a hot take without at least giving you guys a reasoning for what I think. All right, so let's backtrack a little bit. When the contract was made, the contract says that the winner gets to choose which weight they fight at again, right? For the rematch. That was part of the rematch clause. Whoever won gets to choose the rematch weight. So obviously, Terrence Bud Crawford won, right? So he gets to choose the weight. But both men leading up to the fight, they both kept saying over and over again, man, it was really difficult for us to make 147. We want to move up. Like, you know, we're both planning on moving up after this fight, win or lose. Pretty much both guys were on the same consensus with that. They were like, hey, I'm moving up. So they both said they want to move up. They want to go to 154. Now you got Crawford talking about moving up to 68 and fighting Canelo. You know what I mean? So both guys are pretty interested in moving up. But and Bud has been offered a possibility to fight Jerome Boots Ennis at 147. And he's denying that. He goes, nah, I'm done. I'm not fighting Boots at 147. I'm done. You know, he's like, I'm done with 147. I want to move to 54, maybe fight Charlo. I want to move to 68, maybe fight Canelo, right? So now this past week, it's come out that Bud Crawford said, I will only fight Errol Spence at 147. So it doesn't make sense to me that you won't fight Boots Ennis at 47, but you will fight Errol Spence at 47, knowing that Errol Spence is not going to fight at 147 at all. He wants to fight at 54 next. I mean, Errol's to the point where he's like, dude, I cannot make that weight comfortable anymore. We obviously could see in the last fight that it affected him in some way. He was not himself. It was a devastating weight cut for him. I'm not using that as an excuse, and neither is Errol, right? Errol's like, hey, I lost, but he goes, I feel like I do better at 154. I think he would do better at 154 too. Do I say he beats Crawford at 154? Not necessarily, because Crawford is still a skilled fighter, right? And Crawford will probably translate to a really good 154 pounder as well. So I'm not just saying automatically we go to 154, Spence wins, but I do think that Spence has a better chance at 154 than he did at 147. So I think there's a little bit of foolery going on here. Just a little bit. Just the fact that he won't fight anybody else at 147 and defend the belts, but he will fight Errol there, but won't fight Errol at 154. So, but is willing to fight Charlo at 154 or Canelo at 168. It just seems weird. It just seems like he doesn't want to rematch Spence, and I think he's worried that at 54, Spence is going to be a little bit bigger, more hydrated, and has maybe a little bit better chance. I think that, I don't know. And do I want to say that Bud's ducking? No, I don't want to say that because I don't think Bud is. But I just think there's a little bit of foolery going on there.
It's an evil world we live in.
So tell me what y'all think in the comments. That's question of the week. Do you think that Bud is avoiding a rematch with Spence. Do you think that Spence has a better chance at 154 as opposed to 147? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Question of the week. But yeah, we'll finish it up with that, guys. Man, the gang is growing. The gang is growing every week. I'm starting to post more of these shorts, and these shorts are kind of starting to pop off a little bit. And we're getting subscribers off of that. So thank you all so much, man. It seems like the snowball is finally gaining a little bit of traction, and we're getting bigger and bigger and bigger every week. Thank y'all so much for all y'all that tune in every week. Thank you guys for the new viewers that are maybe just tuning into this episode for the first time. Thank you guys so much. Do your boy a favor. Please like, comment, subscribe. Hit the post notifications. Tell a friend. Tell your uncle. Tell your auntie. Tell your cousin. Maybe you're at a boxing gym and you're like, hey, man, I watched this dude. Hit him up. So, yeah, we appreciate you guys, though. Seriously, everybody that watches, everybody that comments. And, yeah, until the next one, y'all. Peace.